Hey guys, and welcome back to Media Minutes. This is a short video series where we point out the flaws in Christian media and discuss how you can fix the usual errors. My name's Josue Vega.
And I'm Cameron Reel. This week we're going to be diving into the world of people talking into fancy mics. Or podcasting. We're going to be talking about podcasting.
You know, podcasts skyrocketed in popularity in 2020 with 155 million people listening to a podcast every week.
Wow.
Those numbers stay steady and rising, with 2021 having an estimated 100 million listeners every month. And so obviously, I'm sure a lot of our viewers are thinking to themselves, man, I would love to start a podcast, but I don't even know where to start.
Well, lucky for you, we're here to help. Here are 4 simple yet detailed and helpful tips on how to make your podcast successful. The 4 tips are: define your goal,
Know your audience,
find your sound,
and establish a social media presence.
Tip number 1, what is your goal? Now, this is a simple yet also complex thing to figure out, as it is fundamental to the making of your podcast. But first, what is your podcast going to be about? Antique cars? Business management? Ginger tea? Bible stories? Whatever it may be, it is so crucial to have a somewhat specific topic that has enough information within it to stretch for at least a season's worth of content, which can usually be about 10-minute to 45-minute episodes. Make sure your podcast is as original as possible, or is at least set apart from the crowd to some degree. The topic should preferably be something you're passionate about, or have a good amount of knowledge on. Then you're ready to ask yourself the question, what is my goal?
This question is actually equally as important as what is your podcast going to be about? Because without a goal set, there's not much point to an idea. It's just there.
So, what is your end game? Where do you want your podcast to be a few months from now? What type of growth do you wish to achieve in its first month?
What do you want people to receive and retain as listeners from your podcast? Simply, why are you making this podcast? As you answer these questions, the next tip follows logically. Who's your audience?
Finding your audience is pretty self-explanatory. Who do you want listening to your podcast? Although having the whole world listen to your podcast is a novel and lovely idea, it's extremely vital to know your target audience because it will set your podcast apart from others. Take your target audience, whether it's females in their 30s or boys and girls ages 6 to 10, and make sure your content sticks to that specific group. Now, hammering down ideas and content is much easier because you know exactly what demographic you need to direct your attention to.
Next tip is find your sound, and I mean that statement both literally and figuratively. Here's some simple sound tips. Will you have your podcast interviews over Zoom and use its audio, or will you have an actual studio where people come and talk with you face-to-face with good microphones? Neither of these options are a bad choice, and there's also alternate options within those, but you need to make the sound decision in the end, no pun intended.
Now, I've heard podcasts presented over Zoom that do the job sound-wise. Creators do this sometimes because of a low budget and they feel that their content would suffice. And it does. But if you want to go the route of an actual studio with good podcast-level mics, try brands like Rode or Shure and Audio-Technica. These mic brands rank quite high and range in price from $100 to $350, with many different options to choose from.
Now, let's think about finding your sound figuratively. And what I mean by that is, what type of sound or voice does your podcast have? This idea connects a little bit back to the first tip, define your goal, because you're asking yourself questions like, does the content that I'm putting out make people want to come back? Is my podcast fitting into the genre that I want it to? And what difference am I making in people's lives? Answering these questions will solidify your podcast sound, leaving you with a stronger idea and description of your podcast's ultimate goal. Remember to not overthink it too much. For some of you, you might just need to take the leap.
Our final tip to you is to have a strong social media presence. Being present on social media is so vital in this day and age because not only does the world pretty much revolve around the internet and social media, but people are less susceptible to find out about your podcast if you don't have an account for it, at least on one social media platform such as Facebook or Instagram or Twitter.
Your social media account should look nice, even aesthetic. Follow a theme and figure out what style of content you want to post. Look at what time people are most active on your page and pick a specific time to post. Be intentional and very interactive with your followers, especially early on, and reach out to friends to support, review, and promote your podcast page.
If you already are on a social media platform and have a decent amount of followers, Starting a podcast and promoting it on your page will guarantee you a kickstart into your podcast career. Also, consistency. Consistency is key. Whatever you choose to do with both your content and posting schedule, be consistent and stay that way. People appreciate something that they can follow but isn't too predictable. It should always leave your audience wanting more.
Speaking of being left wanting more, that's it for our podcast tips. So I hope these tips are helpful to your church or ministry.
Thanks so much for watching Media Minutes. Be sure to check out our other videos with resources to help your church or ministry.
Till next time, guys, keep podcasting.